Hello, I'm Mel, and welcome to Rain's channel. Hey guys, don't forget to like and subscribe to support this channel. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy your listening.
My Childhood Ghost by Just Us Two. My family and I moved into a house in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada in the early 70s. The house was built in the late 1800s and was quite nice inside, complete with cherry wood banisters and a mantelpiece. My mother had most of the experiences in this house, but of all of us, except my dad, had at least one experience. One night, when my mom and dad were sleeping, a pillow was placed over my mother's face and was held in place while my father slept soundly beside her. Another night, my mother was walking up the stairs when she suddenly became dizzy and could not go on. She got down on her knees because she was afraid of falling, but within a minute she was rolling down the stairs. I watched this happen, and to this day, I swear she was pushed, however. No one was there. On another occasion, she had fallen asleep on the couch in the living room. She had a dream that there was a coffin in the room with her, laid out in front of the living room window. In this coffin was an old lady, dressed in black. My mother later saw this same old lady on many occasions standing on the second floor landing where I watched my mother fall from. One day, we had a barbecue, and the neighbors attended. My mother re-encountered her dream to an elderly neighbor, Margaret. Margaret asked my mother to describe the lady in the dream. When she did, Margaret became pale and said that the ghost was her aunt who had died in the house many years earlier, and was laid out in front of the living room window as was customary for that time period. One day, my brother and sister came tumbling down the stairs, screaming that they were afraid of the old man who was staring at them. From the hallway, no one was there. They were very young at the time, perhaps 8 and 4. My experiences were not visual, but on many occasions I heard footsteps, and I would often feel my bedsheets being straightened out while I was sleeping. Our House in Texas by Graybo. Hi, this is a long story. I will try to condense it. When we first moved to San Angelo, Texas, we were leasing a home. I found myself unemployed as I had left my job in Houston to go with my husband, who was transferred. At the time, we had 2 teenage sons still at home. My mother was in a nursing home, so that left me alone all day, every day, around noon. If I was standing at the kitchen sink, I would see a man in a tall, dark suit walk up to the front door. Being alone, I was hesitant to go see who it was. I would go to the door, but there was no one there, and the same thing would happen between 4:30 and 5 p.m. I said nothing to anyone about this, as I didn't want my husband to think I was losing it. Then, one day, I heard my 17-year-old son talking to his friend. He told him that there was this man in a dark suit whom he would see walk to the front door, but when he went to the door, there was no one there. I was quite relieved to know that I wasn't crazy. Then, we would hear someone put a key in the front door lock, but the door would never open, and neither did the storm door. The doorbell would ring. No one was there. My youngest son insisted on moving his bed to the other side of the room. Something about shadows. Things would disappear and reappear in strange places. One evening, I sat alone. The dog's fur stood up on end, and he began to growl at the entrance hall. I looked, and there was this smoky-looking stuff that came together and formed an elongated, oval shape, and then just disappeared. We bought a home on the other side of the city. Felt warm and quite homey. Nothing strange was happening here until we repainted the guest room. I went in there to vacuum the following day and noticed that 2 long rows of wet spots were on one wall. I panicked, thinking we must have a water pipe that was leaking. I touched one and it felt cold, but not wet. So I pressed a tissue to the wall, and it absorbed no moisture. We finally got the spots covered, but it took 2 coats of bleed check and a lot more paint to do it. I would get this cold feeling, felt like I was being watched. The cats would bat at things in the air that were not visible. The guest room wall remained a mystery. There was one spot on it that felt electrically charged, but it really wasn't. Things would disappear and reappear in strange places. For instance, once, when my husband was packing to go to a seminar, He was taking new toiletries out of their wrappers and packing them. He left the wrappings on the bed. I was there with him. He took some of the cash out of his pocket and handed it to me. I told him to put it in my purse, which was on the dresser. I watched him do it. I then gathered up the wrappers to take them to our bathroom and throw them in the wastebasket. When I went to drop the paper in the basket, the money was in the trash, all crumpled up. The doorbell would ring, and no one would be there. One day, a blue car came up to our driveway, and the doorbell rang. The dog barked and ran to the door, and I followed. Through the door, I could see a plaid shirt on a man. I opened the door, and there was no one there, and there was no car either. My daughter-in-law told me that, and I had not mentioned any of this to her. As she was about to put her arm around me in the kitchen, something pushed her away, something that felt cold. And my other daughter-in-law said flatly that she would not be staying in the guest room ever again. Didn't want to discuss it. The stove would be turned on mysteriously, almost causing fires. The list goes on and on. I was almost glad to move to Oklahoma just to get out of that house. And all was fine here for the first couple months. Now it's starting here. Things are disappearing and haven't even started to reappear yet. The cat sees something that isn't there, and I feel like I'm being watched again, even getting the feeling that I'm blanketed in something cold as ice. In Texas, at one point, we set up the tape recorder, and for the most part, there was nothing, except in the middle of one tape, there was this moan, really eerie. We originally came from Pennsylvania, where we lived in an old Victorian home that was built in 1832. There were things in the house, especially at night, when you could hear voices, but could never quite make out what they were saying, and footsteps in the hall. We all heard these things, but figured a house that old has a lot of history. Some of it is bound to have stayed there. But these homes I'm referring to are relatively new homes. Our present home is 15 years old. Any input would be appreciated. Oh, I forgot to mention that one time I was running the vacuum sweeper at the Texas home, and it was not plugged in. I know that sounds crazy, but it happened. And something else, in Texas, my husband and I would think we heard one another calling, but actually neither of us had spoken. And a man's form would appear outside the shower when I was showering. There were times when I know I saw my husband walk into the room or come down the hallway, but he wasn't there. You know, there are times when I feel like all this must be a dream, but it's not. It really happens. Would just like to know if it could have followed me here.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the narration, don't forget to like the video and make sure you subscribe for future content just like this. If you have a story you would like to be narrated, just contact Rain by email. It's linked down below. We look forward to seeing you again next week.